Hello everyone, this is Zenith, and today I'm going to share with you one of my house plants. This plant is an Anthurium. You can easily identify an Anthurium based on its heart-shaped glossy leaves. They are such a beauty when they are in full bloom. Now, I grew up with this plant, and it's just such a joy to have this plant around. No matter where I've lived, I've always owned an Anthurium plant because it reminds me of home, and it just gives me that feel-good, nostalgic feeling. So it's a plant that's very near and dear to my heart. Now, Anthurium is an epiphyte, meaning it's an air plant. An air plant is a plant that grows on another plant for support. They don't use that plant as a host plant. They just use it for support, just as we'll use like a stake or a trellis or an obelisk in our garden to support a plant. Because it uses the plant only for support and it's not parasitic, in the wild, the Anthurium gets its moisture and nutrients from the air, from rain, or from any decomposing material that surrounds it. So in the wild where it grows, it's usually in climates that's very hot, very humid, tropical climates. That's normally where these will grow in the wild. So when I was growing up in the islands, these were everywhere because it's warm, it's tropical, and it's humid. So we grew them outside. Just about everyone that I can think of owned an Anthurium. And they grew outside in pots, they grew outside in our landscape, just about everywhere. So I have the red here, but another color that you'll see a lot is pink. So those are the most often you'll see the pink or the red. As a houseplant, Anthuriums are very easy to grow. They're very carefree, they're slow growing, and doesn't require a lot of maintenance at all. The showiest part of the Anthurium is this red leaf that you're seeing here. Yes, that's a leaf, that's not the flower. This red leaf is called a spathe, S-P-A-T-H-E, and the actual flower is this long, narrow spike that grows outside of the spathe that's called a spadix, S-P-A-D-I-X. So we have the spathe, and then we have the spadix. Now, let me tell you a few things about what you can do to ensure that your plant is happy and healthy. First, let's talk about water. Anthuriums does not need or like a lot of water. Remember, they're an epiphyte, and they get moisture in the wild from the air when it rains. So they do not like to sit in soil that's waterlogged because the root would tend to rot. So that's not good for a plant. So what I generally do is I'll water my Anthurium and my other indoor plants every 7 to 10 days. Now, depending on the time of the year, if it's winter, it may be as long as 14 days. Why? Because the house may be drier. It's not as hot. So think about your home. How hot is it? That will determine how much water your plant needs. Also the location, how much sun is it getting? Now that will take me to my next point, which is light. How much light does your Anthurium needs? For me, what I do is I place my Anthurium and my other indoor plants in a north-facing window where they receive bright, indirect light. Now, if you recall, when I potted up my amaryllis bulbs, I placed them in a south-facing window until they started to flower. Now, with the indoor plants, the reason why they're in a north-facing window is because you really want to prevent the leaves from being scorched. And again, one of the things you may want to do is walk around your home every few days, look at your plants, determine whether they're getting enough sunlight or not, are they getting enough moisture. And if it's getting too much light, then you can just move the plants away from the direct sun, from that bright light. If you notice, if the stems tend to get yellow or the tips of the leaves tend to get yellow, it could be a result of too much water or too much sun, so it's being scorched or it's being overwatered. So those are things that you should be mindful of. Now let's talk about fertilizing. When and how often should you fertilize? For my indoor plants, I tend to fertilize only in the spring and the summer months, and to give them a break the rest of the year, to not push them that hard. Actually, what I use, and my preference is to use a slow release fertilizer. Osmocote is generally what I use. So I have been using Osmocote for as long as I've had indoor plants, which is a really long time. So I use Osmocote because, again, it's slow releasing. I just sprinkle it on top and then I water from the top. That way the water will break down the fertilizer and it will travel through the soil down into the roots of the plant. Now let's talk about soil. Again, because Anthuriums are an epiphyte, meaning that they grow outside, generally in the wild, where they grow on another plant, they don't need a lot of soil. So what they generally need is composted material, a lot of humus, a lot of rich soil. So you think of something like leaf litter or decomposting material. That's generally where they grow in the wild. So that tells us that if we do have soil, it should be well draining, or we should avoid keeping the soil really moist because that's not their preference. Anthuriums are really easy to grow. They're very carefree. Yes, they're slow growers, but they will reward you with a lot of color if you give them the right growing conditions. Now, this particular plant I've had for 8 years, and I started it as a little plug, basically. It was a plant that was no bigger than this that I bought at a big box store for about $4, and I've had it for about 8 years. And it's a slow grower, but it blooms very, very often. It blooms every year. And it's something that I look forward to, especially this time of the year when I'm not able to go outside and there is not a lot of color outside in my gardens. I tend to focus more on my plants that are indoors, and that's when they tend to get a lot more TLC when I'm not able to go outside. So I hope you'll add an Anthurium to your indoor plants. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe, please share, and please hit the notification bell. Hope you're having a great day. See you in the next video. Bye.